I'll be sharing the recordings as well. You can follow these recordings as well later on to perform the lab setup installation. Okay. But basically, what we're going to do today is we're going to learn how do we install a practical lab setup for our upcoming sessions. Okay. So we need something called the Kali Linux operating system. So you can go to your browser, you can search for Kali Linux, and you get the first link here, Kali Linux Penetration Testing and Ethical Hacking Linux Operating System. So this is different from your Windows operating system, guys. So there are two kinds of operating systems. One is the Windows family and the other is the Linux family. There's one more as well, the Apple's Mac OS. Okay, so that is also loosely based on Linux itself. Okay, so for our upcoming sessions, guys, this operating system is very important. Okay, because we're going to perform a lot of practicals on this operating system. Okay, and this is different from your Windows. Okay, so we have to install this operating system on our devices. Okay, but for that, you don't need to remove Windows or so. We can install this virtually. What I mean by virtually is we'll be using something called virtualization softwares. Okay, so these virtualization softwares allow you to install multiple operating systems on one singular device. So this is my Windows operating system. Inside this, I can install an application, a virtualization software, inside which I can install Kali Linux. Okay. So if I explain this with a simple diagram, just let me show you. So what I'm going to do now is, if this is my base machine here, just a second. So if this is my base operating system device, let's say this is my Windows 11 here, Windows 11 operating system. And this has a configuration, let's say 1 TB hard drive space and 16 gigabytes of RAM or something, let's say. So in this base machine now, I'll install a software called virtualization software. Just give me 1 second. Right. Sorry about that. That was my cat. But anyways, so coming back to this, as mentioned, so we have these applications called virtualization softwares, and we're going to install an application today called VMware. So this is one of the virtualization softwares, which allows you to install multiple operating systems in one singular device, VMware Workstation. Okay. So I'm going to share this file with you anyhow over the email at the end of this class today. Okay. But again, as mentioned, this application now, VMware, allows you to install multiple other operating systems inside one singular device. Okay. So we're going to install this VMware first on our system. Inside this, I'm going to install another virtual machine called the Kali Linux operating system. So here, I'm going to install Kali inside this. Okay. This is clear, everyone. Vamsi, Ben, Charles, any questions up to this point? Perfect. So let's get into the installation of VMware, guys. So as mentioned, I'm going to share the software with you myself. So I'll be sharing it over your email, guys. Please drop your emails in the chat box. Once I'm going to drop a hi here in the chat box, so you can drop your email here, and I'll share the file over the email. So again, I'll be sharing this link to you. Okay. So when you click on this link, you will be getting access to my Google Drive data. So on that, I have VMware uploaded. So when I click on this link, you can see it shows me the setup folder here. And on that setup folder, if I open up the setup folder here, you would see there's a file here, VMware Workstation full 16.1.exe. So this is the file that you have to download on your machine, guys. Once you download this, which is around 621 megabytes or so, you have to perform the installation. So I already have this file on my machine, guys. You would have to download it later on. So once downloaded, this is what it should look like over here. This is the file. Okay, and as mentioned, this is around 621 megabytes. Okay, so first things first, let's get started with the installation of this file. So right click on this file, And you can either click on open, or I would suggest run as administrator. And this should start the setup wizard for us. Let's wait for a minute. Yeah. If I go to my desktop, yeah, this is the setup wizard, guys, as you would notice. So again, very simple steps, default step, nothing very complex. Click on next. Click on I accept the terms in the license agreement. Click on next again. Okay. So you're going to install it on the default path itself. C program files, VMware workstation. Nothing to change here. You don't need to install any enhanced keyboard driver. This isn't required. So click on next again. And here we uncheck both these boxes. Do not check for product updates and do not join the customer experience program. It gives you spam emails and all. Okay. So just uncheck both these boxes here. Click on next. Click on next again to create a shortcut on desktop as well. And now click on install. This is the last step. And when you perform the installation in the end, after this is done, it will ask you for a license key, guys. I'm also going to attach the license keys in the email. Okay. So on the same Google Drive folder, above the or below the setup folder, you would have one more folder called keys. Let me show you once the installation is done. This shouldn't take more than 2-3 minutes or so. So on your device, once this is done, inside this VMware application, we're going to install the Kali Linux operating system. But before that, as mentioned, this is asking for a license key. So don't worry, just go back to the same folder, the VMware folder, which I've shared the link for. And in that, you will see there's a folder called setup just below. Oh, sorry, the setup. And above that, there's a folder called keys. Open that folder. And there should be one more folder inside it called keys again. And there should be a text file within that called keys again with the same name. And when you open that text file, there's a lot of keys over here. So you can use any random key, guys. You don't use the first one. I've used it many times already, so it might be invalid. Go for the second one or third one or anything. Okay, any random key should work. So copy the key from there. Go back to your browser or the VMware Pro setup and paste the key over here. Same exact key. And click on enter. That's it. That completes the VMware workstation installation. So now we have installed VMware. So this is done over here. So this application is successfully installed. Okay. Now what we have to do is we have to install Kali now after this. Okay. So to install Kali now, oh, sorry, my bad. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the official website of Kali and download Kali now. Okay. So for that, I'll just go back to this website. Now I'm going to click on download here. I hope you know how to visit this website, guys. Just go to your browser, search for Kali Linux, click on the first link, and that should give you the official website for Kali. Again, as mentioned, this is a Linux-based operating system built specifically for cybersecurity related tasks. Okay, computer forensic, reverse engineering, penetration testing. These are all operations that we perform in cybersecurity. And this operating system comes pre-installed with all the tools required for cybersecurity. Okay, so again, we're going to learn how to install this today. So first thing first, click on download here. And after that, you have two options here. If you notice, one is installer images and one is virtual machines. What we're going to install an image is when you want to install it in your base machine itself. If you want to remove your Windows and replace Windows with Kali, then you go for installer image. We don't want to do that. We want to keep Windows as our base machine and we want to install Kali as a virtual machine. So I'm going to go for the second option here. Click on virtual machines and then it provides you multiple options here. Kali, VirtualBox, Hyper-V, QEMU, these VMware. Okay, these are all the platforms of virtualization. And what we have installed on our system here is VMware. Okay, so we're going to download the compatible VMware version of Kali. So when I click on download here, this should start downloading a file which is around 2.94 gigabytes, almost close to 3 GB file, guys. So I already have this file on my system. Okay, so if I show you the file, this is what it looks like. So I would recommend you create a folder on your device, guys, called virtual machines. And in that folder, save this file called Kali. Okay, so as you can see, this is the file, and this is around the same size, 2.94 gigabytes. Okay, so now we have to install this one inside the VMware. And let me show you how to do that first. So first things first, it's a zip file, it's a compressed file. So you have to extract this file now. So in your operating system, if you have a tool like WinZip to extract files, it's perfectly fine. If you don't have WinZip, we can use a third-party application called 7-Zip as well. So if I go to my browser now, and in my browser, if I search for 7-Zip, and if I click on the first link here, this is a freeware, a free software to extract or compress files. So click on the first download link here, click on open, and this should download a file which is around 1.6 megabytes or so. Right click on that and click on run as admin. And you would get this setup here for 7-Zip. Just click on install, and with one click, 7-Zip is installed. That's it. A very simple and a lightweight application, guys. Nothing too complex at all. Okay. So once 7-Zip is installed perfectly, just a second. Yeah. So once 7-Zip is installed, you can go back to the zip file again, Kali. Right click on that file now. Click on show more options. And you should get the option now 7-Zip. And in 7-Zip, you have another sub option, I would say, or an additional option called extract to Kali Linux 2024.1. So when you select this option now, it creates a new folder with that same name and starts extracting all the files in that folder. Okay, so this is the Kali Linux folder into which all the files are getting extracted now. Okay. Any questions up to this point? Charles, Ben, Vamsi? Yeah, Charles, Ben, any questions on your part? Perfect. Moving forward, after this is extracted now we have to open this again. When you open up this folder, you see there's multiple files here. So these are all the files required for your virtual machine, for your virtual operating system. And the most important file out of this is this unique looking file over here. Okay, this is what we have to open up in our VMware workstation. But before we do that, let me open up my VMware actually. So if you've noticed, I've installed it here. So once it's installed, I see an icon about that in my desktop. When I double click on this, this is what your VMware looks like actually. So on my VMware, guys, again, I've installed some other virtual machines earlier. So that's why I see all these options here. Okay. All my older virtual machines got imported back into my VMware. But when you install VMware for the first time, you would not have any of these virtual machines. So let me delete Kali. You don't have to do this because you won't have Kali in the first place. Okay. But when you install VMware for the first time, this is the screen you would get, the home screen, which shows all these options here and my computer here, nothing inside my computer. Because again, these are my virtual machines, which I installed earlier. So you won't have any of these. Okay, so don't get confused regarding that. Now, inside this, we have to open up our Kali Linux operating system. So in order to do that, all you have to simply do is go back to the folder where you have the Kali Linux for files over here. Oh, I think I deleted the files just now. My bad. Let me extract it one more time very quickly. Show more options, 7-Zip, extract to Kali. Just a second, guys. I'm gonna extract these files and I'm gonna show you how to import this Kali Linux operating system inside the VMware. A very simple step, just 1 or 2 clicks, and it'll automatically import it in VMware. So the procedure for that is once the folder is extracted, in that you would see one very unique looking icon, as you can see. So there are multiple ways, guys. One way you can just select this file, drag and drop it here. This is one method. Okay. Alternatively, you can just double click on this. That will also work. Or alternatively, you can right click on this, click on open with, and select VMware workstation here. So any of these options will work, guys. Okay. So I would recommend right clicking this, clicking on open with, and selecting here VMware workstation. And as soon as you do that, it should add a virtual machine here called Kali. As you can see, a new virtual machine has been added here, Kali Linux 2024. So this is how you import any operating system files into the VMware. Okay. Once it is imported here, we have to configure the operating system now. How much RAM do you want to allocate? How many processors do you want to allocate? What kind of network connections do you want to allocate? So all that needs to be set up here now. So first things first, click on memory here. Once you have selected on Kali, so once that virtual machine is successfully imported inside VMware, select memory here. And inside memory, you can select the amount of RAM you want to allocate. So the recommended memory is 2 gigabytes, guys. So if your system has 8 gigabyte storage, 1/4 of it will go to Kali. Okay, if you have much more, 16 gigabytes or so, it's much easier. It will run much more smoothly. Okay, so give 2 gigabytes here, nothing to change in memory. Processors, our systems usually only have one processor. So select here, number of processors, 1. Okay, and cores also 1. Okay, you can put it as 1 or 2, it's your choice. Okay, if you put it as 2 also, that's no harm in it. Okay, so but number of processors should always be 1. Okay, 1 processor, 1 or 2 cores, your choice. Hard drive space, so this machine is right now currently running on 13 gigabytes of storage. Okay, so that's the minimum amount of storage required for Kali Linux. It can go up to a maximum of 80 gigabytes, but with our entire duration of the course, it won't even cross 15 gigabytes or so. So nothing to worry. Okay, so the maximum storage you would require for this virtual machine is only 15 gigabytes, not more than that. Okay, but nothing to change here, guys. So only memory 2 gigabytes, processor 2 gigabyte, sorry, processor 1 processor with 2 cores, and network adapter. This is important. So here we have to select bridged mode. Now, what I mean by bridged mode is now this is connected directly to the physical network, which means now your virtual machine is capable of communicating with other devices in your local network. So if I open up my diagram again, so now this virtual machine now can communicate with my Windows 11, and Windows 11 can communicate with my Kali system. So that is what bridged mode means. If you select the other option called NAT mode, so there's one more option called NAT here. So this is when only the virtual machines can communicate with one another. So if there's one more virtual machine, let's say here, let's say I install one more virtual machine called Ubuntu. It's another Linux operating system. Okay. Now, when you select NAT mode, in NAT, only these machines can communicate with each other. Okay, so the communication between virtual machines and base machine will not be possible. Okay, so that is what is NAT mode. We don't want that. We want communication among all devices possible. So for that, we have to put bridged mode. Bridge mode allows you to communicate among the virtual machines and also among the base machine as well. So all the devices now can communicate with each other. Okay, Kali can communicate with Ubuntu, Ubuntu can communicate with Windows 11. All of them belong in the same network now. So that is why we have to select here bridged mode. Okay, and that's it. Nothing further, guys. Click on OK. And now just click on power on this virtual machine. And that's it. This should now start the Kali Linux operating system for us, booting in 3, 2, 1 seconds. So this is how we would install the Kali Linux in our machine case. So as you can see right now, in my one singular device, I'm capable of running multiple operating systems. Okay, one is my Windows 11 operating system running here. This is my Windows 11. And inside Windows 11, I have this application called VMware, inside which I'm running Kali. That's the same exact setup which we saw here. Windows 11. Oh, let me erase all this. Yeah, as you can see, Windows 11. Inside Windows 11, we have VMware. Inside VMware, we have installed Kali. Okay, is that clear? Charles, Ben, Vamsi.
Yes.
Right. And once you start up the Kali operating system, guys, you would get a login screen as such. Okay. Don't worry if you don't know the username and password, nothing to worry about. It has the default credentials, Kali and Kali. So username Kali and password Kali, Kali. Okay. So click on login, everything in lowercase. And this gives you a working Kali Linux operating system. So this is our Kali Linux, guys. Okay. Very different from your Windows operating system, but don't worry, we're going to go with the introduction to Kali in the next session. Okay. So if you want to go into full screen mode, you can select this option here. So if you see this button, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth option. So when you select that, you go into full screen mode. And if you want to come out of full screen mode, you can press Control and Alt, and you will get your mouse in your base machine. So when you don't do that, your mouse will only be in the virtual machine. You cannot come out of it. So if you press Control and Alt, you get your mouse in your base machine. And now you can just minimize this and come back to your base machine as well. Okay, so this is how you can install Kali Linux in your base machine guys in VMware. And as mentioned, this comes pre-installed with all the pen testing tools for information gathering, for vulnerability analysis, for password attacks, for Wi-Fi attacks. So whatever things we discussed in our demo sessions, okay, all the operations that we perform in cybersecurity, for those operations, whatever softwares are required, whatever tools are required, are available in this one single operating system. Okay, so this is the required lab setup, guys, for the upcoming sessions. Okay, from tomorrow onwards, we're going to work on the Linux operating system. Okay, but a brief intro on Linux before we exit the session. As mentioned, Linux is quite different from your Windows operating system. It's more of a command line utility operating system. So tomorrow, this is what we're going to talk about. So if I open up my presentation notes. So we are done with networking fundamentals, guys, the first topic. So we are in Linux commands right now, the next topic. So don't worry, Vamsi, you have missed out those classes, but I'm going to talk about that separately with you. We'll take up a backup session on networking fundamentals. Okay. So nothing to worry about that. That and this are not interconnected anyway. So where is my... Yeah, over here. So in tomorrow's session, guys, we're going to talk about Linux commands, an introduction to Kali Linux. Okay. What is Kali Linux? Why is it used for? What is Linux operating system? How is it different from Windows and Mac OS? Okay. What is the architecture of a Linux operating system? How is it different from Windows? And what are the commands in Linux? Okay. So how do you run a Linux operating system? This is what we're going to talk about in the upcoming sessions from tomorrow's class onwards. Okay, so I'll briefly explain practically what each of these commands are and how do you work on a Linux operating system so that you can get a bit comfortable with it. So we'll talk about all this in the next session, guys. Okay, so that's that. Nothing further for our session today. Any questions or doubts before we exit? A simple and a small session to understand how to have a practical lab setup for our upcoming sessions. Any questions, any doubts? Ben, Charles, Wamsi. Okay. So I'm going to share this file now, guys, to all of you. And I'm also going to share the Linux documentation beforehand. So if time permits, you can go through that documentation as well. I'm going to share the Linux and the networking documentation both. And please go through it, guys. Linux commands documentation before we get into the session tomorrow. Okay, so I've shared the lab setup files and also the documentations for the next class. And Charles, I have to share the information gathering one with you, I suppose. Yeah, I've just sent it, Charles. You must have received it by now. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's that, guys. Nothing further for our session today. Vamsi, I'm going to speak to you separately on a call after this session ends. Okay, no worry. But others, any questions or doubts up to this point? Ben, Charles? Perfect. Sure, guys. Let's connect back tomorrow at the same time and we'll progress with Linux commands. Okay, bye-bye. Good day. See you tomorrow at the same time. Okay, Vamsi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. So again, don't worry, Vamsi. As mentioned, we're going to start with Linux commands tomorrow at 8 o'clock in the morning. But at 6 o'clock, again, I'm going to take an extra session for you because we have to cover networking fundamentals. So what are IP addresses? We have to cover all that. So you missed out those sessions. I started this batch last week, actually. But since we weren't in touch by then, so no worries. I'm going to take extra sessions. So tomorrow we'll have a class at 6 a.m. where we talk about networking. Okay, so I'll take those for 2 or 3 days. In 2 3 days, we can complete networking. And again, you will be joining at 8 a.m. to continue Linux commands. I know it might be a bit tough for the first 2 3 days or so. Okay, but again, after that, you only have to join the 8 a.m. session. Okay, so because you'll be on track with the other students. But for now, are you familiar with Linux operating systems by any chance, Vamsi? Have you ever worked with them earlier in your schooling days or so? No worries, no worries. But are you able to understand the concepts right now? Do you find any difficulty in understanding? Okay, so can you perform the last setup installation? I'm going to share the recording. I've already shared the files to you. So can you replicate the same exact thing on your system?
Yes.
Okay, you seem a bit less confident, Vamsi. But if you get stuck somewhere, you have my number, right? So you can call me up anytime and let me know if you get stuck somewhere and if you need any assistance. Okay. So I'm going to share this recording to you shortly now over the email. So I'll be sharing it through a website called Wormhole. So it allows me to share files freely for 24 hours. So the recording will only be available for 24 hours. Okay. So you have to download the recording before that or it will expire. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, again, uh, one more thing I was supposed to ask you, I forgot. Yeah, how much is your system's configuration, Vamsi? How much RAM does it have? How much storage does it have? Do you know?
16 GB RAM.
16 GB RAM, right? So then it should be perfectly fine. Perfect. So yeah, I'm gonna share. I have already shared the VMware file with you. You've also seen where to download Kali Linux from the official website. So you have to get started with the installation today and complete the installation. And in tomorrow's class, we're gonna work with Linux operating system commands. Okay. I'm gonna share this recording to you in a few minutes now. Okay. Bye bye. See you tomorrow at 6 a.m. for networking and again at 8 a.m. for Linux commands class. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Sure.
you.
No worries, Vamsi. Bye bye. Have a good day.